On the Racing Insiders this week, we have Grand Am, the Rolex Series, is at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca, along with a great race in the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge race at Mazda Raceway. And SuperGT is at Fuji. We're all over the globe for you. And we have Are You Kidding Me? What's on our minds? That's on the Racing Insiders coming up next. Welcome back to another edition of the Racing Insiders. I'm Bill Wood in Los Angeles. Jim Daniels is in Memphis, Tennessee. And we've got Peter Keane at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca, where the Grand Am Series was there with the Rolex Series and the Continental Tire. The Rolex Series race just ended. He's with Spirit of Daytona. You can't get more inside than that. They were on the pole. Peter, tell us what happened in the race.
Well, Bill, it was a real tough day for the Spirit of Daytona. Number 9 H started out of the pole, led a bunch in the beginning, and then, fell back to third on the first pit stop, and it kind of went bad from there. We just had a car that was too pinned in the front, so it was really loose for him to drive. We were really good in corners 3, 4, and 5, but then, back in the tight stuff, it was just too loose. And you got to really give a hand to the 10 car. I mean, Jordan Taylor just drove off from the field after they did that first stop, and Max Rudiax got out, Jordan got in. I mean, they just cruised with 30-second lead, and I mean, they were untouchable. Usually I'm crying and whining about the 0-1 car. This time that number was reversed. It's the 10 car just drives away from it. And then in the GT field, it was good to see Magnus win in the 44 car, and my good buddy Eric Kern came home third in the Corvette, so that was good to see. Jim, what was your take?
Well, I mean, where do you even start with this race? You guys were fast. Westy was on it. I think in clean air with a great pit stop, if you could have gotten put back out front, you guys would have done fine. But obviously you faded after that first pit stop wasn't a factor. Listen, Scott Pruitt, that car was a rocket ship. Everybody was talking about in these skip commercial interviews where they come back out of a commercial and interview drivers about how hard it is to pass, And then they go right to the announcers, Dorsey and those guys talking about Scott Pruitt's passing someone else. He's passing someone else. That BMW that Scott Pruitt's driving is a very fast car, capable of winning today, I think, if they'd have been out front. The interesting thing to me, of course, Fittipaldi in the GT Ferrari, he had an off or suspension failure. You and I both raced there before, Peter. When you load up out of the corkscrew headed toward turn 9, it's 1 or 2, 3 G's downward towards your butt. And so he broke a suspension piece in there, and that created a big problem from him. The interesting thing to me was to see Billy Johnson in that Turner BMW, not in a championship fight. He didn't give an inch. He's a show favorite, been on the show with us. Him and Eric Curran and those guys had one heck of a battle there at the end. And I got to give a big kudos to Pat Long. Pat moved that Ferrari out of the way and did it in a way that didn't cause him a drive-through or avoidable contact penalty. That's why he is a factory United States-born Porsche driver. If you would have seen that move and how delicate it was to perfection. The GT race was awesome. My vegan buddy, Andy Lally, wins the race probably because he had the least amount of food in his stomach at that time, and that made for a lighter weight on the tires. That's my take on it, Bill.
The Rolex Series is going to be wild before the end of this year and next year, especially as they get the sharp end of the field between the Daytona Prototypes and the P2. Talked to Michael Shank earlier this week, and he gave me a lot of background. He's still pretty adamant about what he feels the rules ought to be. I have to kind of agree with him. The P2, they're racing here in the United States. The P2 cars are something that's for Le Mans. Let's get a racing series here in the United States. Coming up next, the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge. A big race, last-minute passes and so forth. We'll talk about that right after this. The Racing Insiders is coming up next.
Let us know what you think about what the Racing Insiders have to say. Tell us on Facebook and Twitter. Want to keep up with all the racing action at the track? Well, download the new Go Racing TV iPhone and Android app. And remember to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Welcome back to the Racing Insiders. I'm Bill Wood in Los Angeles. Jim Daniels is in Memphis, Tennessee. And Peter Keane is at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca, where the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge ran on Sunday morning. Peter, tell me what you know about the race and some of the inside information about the teams.
Beautiful day here in Mazda Laguna Seca. I mean, great race. A lot of cautions, a lot of carnage. What was interesting to me is, while I was sitting here in the paddock, is all the top-notch teams that rode by here with tore-up race cars. You know, I saw Brian Sellers come by in the fall line BMW. I mean, just a lot of carnage. Arschenbach and Kern's car had both ends tore off of it. So there's definitely a lot of carnage, a lot of yellows out there, and a lot of big teams that were back here getting repairs done in the paddock.
Isn't that part of the reality when you have close competition, close rules, trying to maximize equalize the race between the cars? You're going to get that kind of carnage because that's the only way you could pass, is just bang your way forward.
Well, yeah, when you got 30-plus cars in each class, and then a tight racetrack like Laguna Seca, I mean, it's great racing. But yeah, with them all so close and the balance being so close, I mean, they end up tearing up some cars. You know, they definitely knocked some tire walls down today.
Jim, you're a driver. You've been in competition like this. Is that what you have to do to get to the front, is just force your way and bang your way through everybody else?
Well, look, contact is a part of the sport, especially when this close street tire racing. Those Continental tires have a lot of grip, but they still are a street tire. And, yeah, you know, you got to rub a little bit, but the series is great about giving drive-through penalties, avoidable contact penalties. And let me just say, with 2 minutes to go, Tom Long's leading the race handedly. He gets passed by his teammate Keane, and his teammate wins the race after Tom pretty much had the car to beat there until they had a caution restart with 2 minutes to go. I think the big story of the day was that Aston Martin of Brandon Davis on the pole. I guess it's the same car they run last weekend in the Pirelli World Challenge that he was on the pole and won the race. On the pole again this week in a totally different series, Continental Tire Challenge. Some of the other standouts, you know, you had Eric Kern in a wall at the corkscrew by himself, hard hit, he continued. You also had Jack Roush punting someone and getting an avoidable contact penalty drive through. So the series is on top of that. It's not a crash and bash type series. It's just sometimes when you're racing close, guy thinks he has a turn, the other guy turns in, somebody goes around, and people get collected. That's the name of the game in Continental Tire Challenge, Bill.
Well, there are some nuanced differences between the World Challenge Aston Martin that Brandon drove and the Grand Am Aston Martin that Brandon drove. They're meeting the rules. They're trying to offer that car as a customer car and change it so that they could show that it's capable of being competitive in both series. That's a new thing that they're trying to do. It's a little different than the program that's being run at Multimatic. This is being run through the Racers Group, but that's what they're trying to do, is
Bill,
show
I
that
just
they
want to
have
interrupt you. There is a beautiful
Aston
Aston Martin street car here with the window sticker in it at the TRG tent, and the price tag's $325. So I told TRG that Tucker was buying each one of the insiders new Aston Martin for our Christmas present. So I think that's about $1 million Tucker's out.
Hey, Peter, I'll just share one with you. I'm not greedy.
Well, see, we've got a driver, we've got an engineer, and we've got a media guy to support the effort. So we should be able to put that together with no problem.
One more thing, and I'm sure Jim will agree with me. You know, this is the third year in a row that Freedom Autosports has been 1-2 at this race. That's an outstanding record. You know, those Mazdas are strong here at Mazda Laguna Seca. So that's a great feat for them to be 1-2 the last 3 years at this race.
Hey, and Peter,
Continental Challenge, especially how competitive it is.
That track is suited for those MX-5s. Since the first day we tested them, I raced for that team in 2008 and developed those cars. And that is the perfect Miata track, Mazda Laguna Seca, and it's very fitting. Bill?
Yeah, I talked to one of the drivers in the C.J. Wilson team, and they were saying that the long straights gives the BMWs and so forth a chance to run away from them, but on a short track, a bull ring kind of track like Mazda Raceway, then they get a chance to compete. That's where they have to do well in order to be competitive in the overall points, because at a track like Watkins Glen, where they have long straights, they just get overrun by the power in the BMWs.
That's right.
That's the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge event, Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca, where we have our special correspondent, Peter Keane, right there in the middle of all the action. Right next, we have SuperGT that's coming up in the next segment at Fuji Speedway. Big event. We'll have that right after this. This is the Racing Insiders. We'll be right back.
This segment of the Racing Insiders was brought to you by GoRacingTV.com. For racers, by racers.
Welcome back to the Racing Insiders. I'm Bill Wood in Los Angeles. Peter Keane is at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca, and Jim Daniels is in Memphis, Tennessee. Jim and I are going to cover the Super GT race. It was a big win. A first-timer won the race this weekend. Wasn't the first for Lexus, obviously, but it was a first-time win. Rain played a part in it, right, Jim?
Absolutely, it did. Now, even before it started raining, they had the rain throughout the weekend at Fuji. This is, by the way, this is a favorite track of sim racers. You can get it on iRacing.com. A lot of us trained on this track and love it. But it rained in the morning, rained throughout the weekend. Looked like it was going to clear up and be nice, and it was for the most part at the start of the race. That number 38 Zent car, they obviously were the car to beat. Pit stop strategy put them back 5th or 6th place, I think around lap 26. Still, they drove to the front, but here was the kicker, and you're going to cover this with the 300 class in a second. It started raining again. It wasn't pouring like it had done the day before, but it was drizzling enough that cars are slipping and sliding all around, and car control become a real big issue. That number 38 Zent Roma car still checked out. They got their first win on the season. It was a pretty big deal for them. It was a great race. I encourage all the fans to get on the internet and watch the clips of these racing, especially since they're going to come here in 2015. Bill?
The GT300 was won by the Z4 BMW. They started 5th and had to work their way through the field in the rain and pit stops, quick pit stops. It was good to see some pit action. We talk about teams in racing. The pit action got the guys to the front, and they won. The Z4 won the GT300 category. Nobutiro Taniguchi and Tatsuya Katsuoka. Wow, getting those names out. It's not like Clint Boyer and Martin Truex, is it? But great racing. You're absolutely right, Jim. In the Super GT, I'd love to see guys that could drive, and they're just not out there banging on each other and getting through the wet asphalt in this weekend, and great pit stops, getting in and out of the pits on time. Great racing in the Super GT, and you're right. When it comes to the United States next year, especially with the rules as they're starting to mingle with DTM and maybe a DTM series here in the United States in 2015, 2016 and beyond, that's going to be good racing. We should learn a little bit about that. If you're a race fan, know about racing and not just NASCAR or Grand Am.
That's right. And Bill, 47-second lead at the checkered flag for that little Z4 BMW in that 300 class. If anyone follows Super GT racing, that is no small feat. Obviously, there's a wheel man finished out that stint.
It's just great to see good racing, and that's what Super GT, DTM, there's good racing all around the world, in here in the United States, but if you're a race fan, follow good racing. Next, Are You Kidding Me? The Racing Insiders, what's on our mind? You'll be surprised this week. Right after this.
This segment is brought to you by Safe Racer. Want to keep up with all the racing action at the track? Well, download the new Go Racing TV iPhone and Android app. And remember to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Are you kidding me?
Welcome back to the Racing Insiders. I'm Bill Wood in Los Angeles. This is Are You Kidding Me? This is one of our favorite segments where we get a chance to pop off a little bit about what's on our mind. Let's go to Peter Keane, Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca, beautiful part of the country. Peter, what's on your mind?
Well, I got to tell you, Bill, my Are You Kidding Me is I finally figured out why Guy Cosmo is worth so much money. I love Guy to death, and he drove for us, and he's a great person. But it finally dawned on me with the help of Troy Fliss, the team owner of Spirited Daytona. Guy Cosmo's a silver driver, and with the new United Sports Cars rules for the Pro-Am deal, you want to be a silver driver. So if you're a rich guy, gentleman racer, and you need a good race car driver to get into your Pro-Am effort, you need a silver driver. So all of a sudden, those silver drivers have become a hot commodity. They've moved to the top of the list. They get big paychecks, big sign-on bonuses, and and a good gentleman driver. Now they think they can go out and win races with Guy Cosmo. I mean, I think Tucker made the excellent pick for Guy Cosmo. Now that you look at it as Guy being, he probably is the premier silver driver for a P2 car. That's my Are You Kidding Me, Bill?
Jim Daniels, what's on your mind? You agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. I happen to be the proud benefactor of being a silver driver myself. My phone's been ringing, and I'm kind of liking this new system. I hadn't got my head all the way around it, but I'm liking it. But my Are You Kidding Me still goes out to Grand Am NASCAR and his Continental Tire Series. You can't find out anything about the race. How much money would it cost to put someone actually tweeting everything that's going on? They're trying, but we have a last lap pass with a 2-minute restart. Tom Long gets passed for the lead. There's no media representing that pass at all. Now, what's going to happen over the next 3 or 4 days, the social media of those drivers are going to trickle out the whole story, so it's still going to be spoiled for the TV audience. Grand Am needs to do that real time, like World Challenge does, Pirelli World Challenge, these other series. If you're going to tape delay these races, at least let's make the session notes a little bit more accurate and keep them on the internet. So after the race is over, we still get to read them and see what happened. Otherwise, we're just going to take 2 or 3 days. You might as well not even watch the race live on live timing and scoring. Just wait to see what the drivers tweet about the crashes, and then don't watch the TV race. Continental, NASCAR, Grand Am, do something live, even if it's just in print on the internet, session notes. We would really appreciate it as fans. Bill?
My Are You Kidding Me is a bit different. We never talk about NASCAR here on the Racing Insiders, but a piece of weirdness that happened, some nonsense that happened at Richmond with the NASCAR race. A guy spins his car on purpose, allows his teammate to get a chance to make it into the playoffs. It was ridiculous, but next year, when the sports car racing goes into United Sports Car, you get maybe larger teams, there's a little more at stake. I'm hoping that we don't get that kind of teamwork. We understand there's teamwork. Guys have to pull over to allow other guys to pass. But when you start manipulating the race outcomes to get your teammate into the race, it's not racing anymore. They call it entertainment. They want to sell that to us fans, but there's got to be some rules that don't allow teammates to help each other like that, to manipulate the outcome of a race, to help a teammate.
Agree.
When you can't believe in the outcome of a race, it's not racing anymore. It's roller derby.
You're right,
or
Bill.
Wrestling or something else. That's my Are
You're
You
right,
Kidding Me? That's what's on our minds. We'll be right back to tell you what's going on the weekend right after this. This is the Racing Insider. Welcome back to the Racing Insiders. Here's what's on the calendar for this week. We've got Formula Drift at Fort Worth, Texas, a new venue for that series. WRC is in Australia. The DTM is at Oschersleben, and the European Le Mans Series is at the Hungaroring. V8 Supercars are at Sandown. A busy weekend. Certainly a lot that's going on that we'll have on the Racing Insiders next week. Peter, what's going on in your mind for this weekend?
Well, I get home from beautiful Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca. I take a 1-day nap, and then I get my rear end in my motorhome and head to Wisconsin for the 50th anniversary of the runoffs. And I mean, looking forward to a great week there in Wisconsin. That's my agenda, Bill.
Jim, I bet your agenda is about the same, right?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be doing a lot of iRacing in the next couple of days. Wednesday, we head to Road America with Peter, caravanning up there. Peter and I will be coming to you on location from Road America, a couple of director's chairs, I'm sure. And both he and I plan to win this 50th runoffs and bring that trophy home for the Racing Insiders. Bill?
You guys never race each other. You're not in the same classes, are you?
Oh, no, that's not true.
We quit doing that a long time ago.
Wait a second, Bill. I'm going to have to interrupt here because I went to my second driving school was in Memphis, Tennessee, and I beat a guy named Jim Daniels that had already been racing. It was my first regional race ever in SCCA, and I beat Jim Daniels was second, and he doesn't ever want to talk about that.
Well, he doesn't want to talk about the flat tire I had, but that's okay. He did beat me fair and square.
Oh, man, I opened up a can of worms that time. Lawyers say you never ask a question you don't know the answer to.
Exactly.
That's the Racing Insiders for this week. Jim Daniels is in Memphis, Tennessee. Peter Keane is at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca. Great weekend. Lots going on. Look forward to seeing you next week. Another busy weekend, and we'll have it here on the Racing Insiders. For Jim Daniels and Peter Keane, I'm Bill Wood in Los Angeles. Take care of each other, respect each other. Look forward to seeing you next week. Peace.